Hi, and welcome to part 2, finally, of the review of the Yamakasi 300 Sparta S-IPS panel. And I just got this repaired with a new mainboard, so I'm going to now be able to do a comparison with a 40-inch LED TV. Now, you might ask yourself, why even bother doing a comparison like this? Because clearly something that has a resolution of 2560 by 1600 versus 1920 by 1080p, which is the monitor in the background, won't be much of a comparison at all. And you're right if you're simply comparing the resolution. Clearly the resolution in the monitor, the Yamakasi, which is the one in the foreground here, versus the one in the background, the Samsung 1080p TV, there is no comparison. It's clear that the Yamakasi is much more refined, it's high resolution, colors are even better, less saturated, more accurate, and images are just rendered more precisely. But there's some advantages to the TV, and we'll get to those later on in the video. But for now, I'm just going to start with some of the calibration, and then I'll do some benchmarks with two programs I like to use, Metro 2033, and then the new Valley benchmark that can give you an idea of what the FPS hit, or the frames per second hit, will be going from 1080p to 2560. And we'll go from there. So I'll set up with some calibration information first. Okay, so we're back and we're going to do a little bit of calibration of the Yamakasi, which is the monitor in the foreground here. And just as you can see, I have both of these monitors VESA mounted, and it really cleans up the look and allows me to swing them around. I use one for a lot of business work, so the Yamakasi, so that's a nicer text display for sure, versus the Samsung. Samsung's not bad in terms of text, but it clearly is not as sharp as the 2560. Anyway, for calibration, you can go to put calibration in the start menu of Win 7, and you come up with under control panel, so calibrate display color. So you click that, and then you'll have some options, and hit next and keep going. Now the Yamakasi doesn't have a lot of allow you to make a lot of corrections for or calibrations for color. You really can only brighten and dim the lamp brightness on the monitor. There's no setting for contrast or brightness or anything like that. It's just really up and down on the brightness of the lamp. So what I did find though was the gamma was out of the box was almost right. I turned mine down a little bit to have a little bit darker. For backlight reasons. So I turned mine down a little bit, somewhere around about a third of the bar, or around 25% of a third of the bar. It's up to you, but turn it down a bit, I found anyway. You can skip brightness and contrast adjustment. That doesn't help you, so go next, next, next. The most important one actually is to change the color of spectrum of the monitor. I find that out of the box, my brand, my particular Yamakasi, was too green and a little bit too red. So I turned the green down considerably. I turned it down about 25, almost 25%. And you're trying for neutral grays in the background. Then I turned the red down a bit too, somewhere there. That's my liking. So a little bit more on the green than the red. The red's only about, I'd say about an eighth, whereas the green is about down about maybe about a fifth to a fourth. Anyway, somewhere in there. I didn't touch the blue. I like the for my preferences. I like to where it is. Then just hit next, and you can check your previous calibration with your current calibration. And I like the better grays, better contrast really. So I won't bother with the clear type. So you can do that if you want, but just cancel that. And so now you've got your, that's the most you can do with Win 7. You can use other programs. You can use NVIDIA control panel to do it as well. You can use other specific software calibration packages to help you out. But Win 7, for my purposes, was good enough. So that's a little bit on the calibration of quick calibration, really, of the Yamakasi. Let's take a little look at backlight bleed. And the Yamakasi, of course, is an LCD CCFL, so cold cathode fluorescent lamp, and the Samsung over on the right is a LED TV. So there are slight differences here in terms of brightness, but they, as you'll see, I think have comparable backlight bleed. So what you can do is in the screensaver in Win 7, just go to blank and where's that blank, and hit preview, and it'll turn them off. And just my room is not totally black, but you can see that there's a lot more light, or if you want to call it backlight bleed, in the Yamakasi than there is in the LED TV. Quite a bit, actually. When I look at this on the camera, it might not be totally fair because I have a bit more light coming from my window on the Yamakasi, but it does appear that there's quite a bit more backlight from the sides on the Yamakasi than the LED on the Samsung, which I thought was basically only fair in dark games like Metro 2033. So expect some backlight bleeding from the Yamakasi in dark games. This might not be as ideal as you'd like it. Hi, welcome back. We're running the benchmark for Metro 2033, and this is at 2560 by 1600. All settings maxed out like I would if I was running in 1080p with my GTX 670 card. EVGA for the win, just one card, not SLI, so keep that in mind when I comment on that later. And I've already run the 1080p resolution, so we have those scores already. So this is not a long benchmark, it's almost done, and then we'll be able to see some scores coming up in a second here. Don't worry about that. So what do we have for the 1080, for the 2560? Well, an average frame rate of 35, call it 36 actually, 35.8. Minimum frame rate is about 8, maximum of about 89. And if we go to the 1080p, well, we have an average frame rate of 62, maximum of 164, and a minimum of 10. So the game is demanding, and the minimum is about the same between the two resolutions. But bottom line is, at least with a demanding video game, you can expect almost half, at least with this game, half of the FPS. It's not quite half, but almost. So that's quite a hit in terms of performance if you are a single graphics card owner or have a lower power graphics card. So I'll try one more benchmark, and that will be the Valley benchmark, and I'll set that up and be right back. Hi, just ran the Unigine Valley benchmark 1.0, and this is the results for the 2560, the Yamakasi monitor. So the FPS looking at around 29, a minimum of about 18, a maximum of about 53. The settings are ultra settings, 4x AA, and normal tessellation, and I'm running this on a GTX 670, as I mentioned, and overclocked 2600K at about 3.4. So let's see what that translates to in a 1080p settings. We'll just click this result over here. And we have FPS about 53, minimum FPS 29, and maximum about 96. So higher maximums and higher averages and a little bit higher minimums. So again, about almost a 50% impact, not quite 50%, say 45 or so on frame rate in terms of average frame rate. So this is a fair impact and something to consider. Anyway, I'm just going to run this while I finish up here. Something to consider when you are looking at a monitor in around this price range, which is, again, around $600 for either the 1080p 60Hz LED 40-inch TV or this Yamakasi monitor. If you want high resolution and accurate graphics and the best detail possible in games, then and 30 inches is fine for you, then certainly get the monitor from Yamakasi or an equivalent one. The advantage of an LED TV is that I find with 40 inches and perhaps 42, I wouldn't go too much larger than that personally, is the immersion level is much better for gaming. I find I just feel like I'm right there in the game with a bigger monitor. It feels a bit more surrounded. I'm not one for side-by-side monitors or multiple displays. I don't like the bezel interruptions, so I don't like that. So yeah, I found with the bigger TV this was better for me. The other factor, of course, is cost. if you want to run higher FPS and the most demanding games coming out, like Crisis 3 or Far Cry 3, or the new Metro Last Light that's coming out in a few days, well, you're going to be dishing out for another video card or a couple of an SLI, or at least a dual GPU video card. So that's going to be a factor, and of course you need a PSU to run that. So there's some cost factors to consider. So it's really up to you what you prefer. If accuracy and color accuracy and sharp resolution is better for you, then certainly higher resolution monitor like the Yamakasi is good for you. If that's not such a huge factor and you really like the immersion and the big screen in front of you, then stick with the TV. This has some advantages, and certainly if you have home theater set up and you're using your PC for using media centers like XMBC, which I use a lot to run my sound system, then it's nice to have a 40-inch TV to sit back a few feet, 15 feet, and see the song list quite easily. So there's some advantages here. Anyway, the decision is yours, and I hope you enjoyed this video to help you out. Cheers.